Hello everyone, I'm Mo Chatra and welcome to the first episode of Money Talks here on our Anfield Index YouTube channel. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me in Money Talks, I am Anfield Index resident football finance person. I've been covering football finance for the better part of 7 years now on Anfield Index, primarily talking about Liverpool Football Club. But I also do look at the finances of other big clubs around the Premier League and also around Europe as well. And two of those clubs have just published financial results in the past week. And I'll start off with one that published their accounts for the 23-24 season, and that is Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal Football Club are a club that's had perhaps the strongest year financially of any of the Premier League clubs in 23-24. It saw a significant increase in its turnover in the year that led up to 31st of May 2024. Their income hit £616 million, and that was an enormous jump up from the revenues that it's achieved in the 2022-23 season. That was a season where revenues hit £466 million. So, for all intents and purposes, the club achieved growth in turnover of £150 million. And that was primarily driven by a return to Champions League football for the first time in a number of seasons, as well as a number of key commercial deals coming into effect, including the renewal with Adidas, which saw its kit sponsorship deal hit 75 million a year. So a great achievement for Arsenal to hit those kinds of levels. So at the previous levels of 466 million pounds a year, their turnover was considerably off that of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, the likes of Manchester City, Manchester United, as well as Liverpool. But to contrast that turnaround for Arsenal, Liverpool's turnover, which is due to be publicly released when its accounts are published in early March, will be coming in at around a couple of million under that. So, in the expectation is about 640, maybe 650 million pounds when those accounts are released. And we know that from the figures that were released in the Deloitte Football Money League back in January, where clubs around Europe do provide their financial data to Deloitte, who then compile that to identify the 20 biggest clubs in world football based on revenue. So that was a great achievement for Arsenal, and in itself does help to propel them into a position whereby they can potentially compete and challenge for major honours for a number of years now. And indeed, they will be generating similar levels of turnover this season, if not more, depending on where they finish in both the Premier League and the Champions League. Now, in terms of other aspects to their financial results, they did reveal that their wage bill did significantly increase. It did jump up by quite some amount. So, in the season ending 2022-23, their wage bill hit £235 million. Yet by the end of 23-24, that wage bill had increased to £328 million. So it was an increase of close to £94 million or so. And that again was largely due to increases in new contracts for players, some notable signings that came through the door, and most importantly and most notably, bonuses related to competing in the Champions League. So a bit like some of the other clubs around in the Premier League, such as Liverpool, Arsenal do pay huge amounts of bonus payments for participation in and success as well within the Champions League for things like clean sheets, goals scored, and the like. So that was a very substantial increase in their wage bill. for the club. It tended to hover in around the 210 to 235 million pound mark for quite a number of years, in fact. So the fact that it saw a significant increase to that extent um, show that the players are being rewarded for Arsenal's turnaround in the last 2 to 3 years, where obviously prior to its recent upturn, it had been hovering in mid-table and returning back into Champions League places, and in terms of the competition as well, has helped to drive that to exceed the 300 million pound mark. The club will also be expecting their wage bill to increase further this season, following on from further incomings in summer 24, as well as further contract renewals as well. So that could well be hitting the 340 to 350 million pound mark when the season is done. Overall, though, the club did achieve a loss, in fact. So it recorded a loss of just shy of 18 million pounds. That was an improvement on the season prior, 52 million, the season before that at 45 and a half. And in 2020-21, which was a COVID affected season stroke financial year, the club did record losses of 107 million pounds. So the club has consistently recorded losses for quite a number of years. However, that was the closest that they've come to breaking even, if not achieving a surplus. And they will be hoping that with a fair wind, they may just be able to achieve some level of break-even position or even a surplus for the 24-25 accounts. And we will only know that in about 11 months' time or 12 months, 11 to 12 months' time, when we start to see some details of their 24-25 performance being reported. So overall, an encouraging set of results for Arsenal. And what's notable also, before I move on to Manchester United, is that the owners of Arsenal Football Club, the Kroenke family, invested 18 million pounds into Arsenal, and in their accounts they do note that it's there as an investment to support with working capital and notably transfer activities. And I note that because for Liverpool fans, they'll be very well aware that the ownership group at Liverpool, Fenway Sports Group, fundamentally are opposed to that type of investment. They do not believe in investing their own money into funding day-to-day operations, such as outlay towards transfer deals. This is also a position that the Kroenkes held up until not that long ago. So in the last several years, the Kroenkes have invested their own money into the club. So 80 million in 23-24, 63 million in 22-23. So 143 million directly from the owners into Arsenal Football Club to support with its finances. And that is something that's now in stark contrast to FSG. FSG, interestingly, when they arrived at Liverpool Football Club in late 2010, John W. Henry, the principal individual involved in Fenway, very much talked about the fact that the Arsenal model of operating the club that the Kroenkes had employed was something that he was a big admirer of. But Kroenkes have, in more recent years, as I've noted, moved away from that approach, from being a purely self-sustaining model to one where they are now open to investing. And it's fair to say that that has corresponded with an upturn in fortunes for Arsenal, though they obviously not won any trophies in the last several seasons. They've certainly become a far greater challenger to the major honours and came very close to winning the Premier League last season, and have clearly not given up hopes of potentially securing their first Premier League in over 2 decades this season. So that was an interesting point within their accounts as well.